Well, welcome to the Mustang Owners Podcast and Mr. Ray. I know this is a bucket list thing for you. We're sitting here with none other than Lee Holman, not just sitting with them. We are at Holman Moody in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the very shop where this man makes magic happen every day. Lee, thank you so much for joining us on the Mustang Owners Podcast.
Our pleasure. We love having you and love having the Mustang people come by.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Mike. They did come by and kind of trash the place yesterday, didn't they?
Yeah. Foxtoberfest is in town in Charlotte, so everybody's coming to see the history and heritage.
But on the drive up, Mike, you said, "Wait a minute, the show's tomorrow. Well, there's got to be something hey, can we call Lee Holman? And can we call him?" And I thought, well, Lee's a busy man. There was a very good possibility that because of everything you see here, that, just sorry, we can't accommodate you. But the way this guy is, the enthusiast that he is, said, okay, so we're crashing in his shop today. We're going to talk a little bit about one story that Mike has to get from you, Lee. And then we also want to talk a little bit about something we talked about in Detroit at Mustang Alley about a brand new Holman & Moody car that just absolutely handles like the dickens. And there's a reason why it does that. And there's some heritage behind it. And we want to talk about that, too.
Yeah, that's going to be great. And all of our listeners and fans are really, really going to enjoy this episode.
So, Mike, on the way up, we talk about you, Lee. We talk about some of the stories you shared with us, and how many times have we just absolutely loved just hanging with him at Carlisle.
Yeah, so we can do this episode right now for 24 hours straight and never run out of stories. That's for sure.
In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to come here and spend like 3 weeks just talking, just emptying all the wonderful experiences you've had as Ford Racing before there was Ford Racing. I mean, because truly Holman and Moody, before there was a Ford Racing, there was Holman and Moody, and without them, we wouldn't have had any of the successes we had before, which is what Mike really wanted to talk about. Because one time, Lee, I don't know if we were where we were. Well, we may have been sharing a rum of Coke somewhere. We could have been doing something. But I remember you telling me a little bit about your experience at Le Mans. And also when you told me that usually when you go to a cool race, like I hung out with my buddy from high school when I went to the last cool race. But Lee was hanging out with some guy, Mike, I think you know him. What's his name?
Yeah, and his name is Edsel Ford for you people who may have heard the name before. But also, we just had Henry Ford III, Edsel's son, on an episode, and so it's all kind of tying together here. And you guys are going to put these pieces together pretty quickly here, especially after you started hearing Lee's story.
Yeah. So Lee, so when you told me that Edsel II was you'd known him since he was a teenager, I thought you were kidding. Yeah. But so if you would, for our Mustang Owners Podcast audience, and just kind of refresh our memory, because you were telling me so many things. It was just so awesome. You did hang out with Edsel Ford II at Le Mans in 1966.
Well, it was a little bit different than that.
Okay.
My father had sent me over to England in 1965 to learn how to get the cars around and through scrutineering and through customs and stuff. And I had spent about 5 months in England with Alan Mann racing the Cobra Daytona Coupes, going to all the major races, this and that, because in 1965, in May of 65, my father already knew that Holman & Moody was going to be part of the Le Mans program. No one else did, but we did. And so the next year, when Holman & Moody, in the fall of 65, Leo Beebe brought us into the program because Shelby and Carcraft had not been able to get the Mark IIs converted and efficiently, and performance-wise, they were not finishing any races or doing anything. So Holman and Moody got invited to join the GT40 program, and at Le Mans in '66, I was there. And my job was made redundant. I was supposed to be the timer. I was supposed to time all the cars. Okay. And I invented a computer to do that. And Alan Mann and Shelby didn't trust that. And so they wanted to use the little English guys with stopwatches and writing down the numbers.
They didn't trust technology.
Yeah, back in 1965.
Yeah. And so my job was made redundant. And I was able to go around and see the whole race and do everything. And at one point, Henry Ford II came up and said, "Lee, you've been to this before, haven't you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, my son Edsel's never been to anything like this before. And could you sort of keep an eye on him and make sure that he doesn't do anything silly or go someplace he shouldn't?"
Well, because he had access to go everywhere.
Yeah, and so did I. Yeah. And while I didn't spend much time with him there, I was always sort of near him or around him. But it was great from my because I was able to go to the backstretch of the Mustang at night and see the cars crest the hill at 220 miles an hour. They lift off the ground and touch down and have a quarter of a mile to make our 90-degree right-hand turn at the signal corner, they called it. And I got to see all that. And if I'd been timing the cars, I never would have left my desk. I would have been stuck in one spot. So I really got to experience the feel of Le Mans because I got to go everywhere and see everything.
Did Edsel II seem like he would be interested in?
He was very enthusiastic and very friendly. And what has been wonderful is that I only run into him because we obviously don't run in the same circles. But I run into him at this race or that race or this restaurant or something about once every 8 or 10 years. He always recognizes me, always speaks, always sits down. At one point, I was up having lunch at the Speedway Club, and Bruton Smith walked in with Edsel Ford, and Edsel saw me and said, "Lee, I haven't seen you in a year. Let me join you for a second." Sat down and started talking to me. And you could see smoke coming out of Bruton's ears. He wasn't used to having someone like that just leave.
So yeah. You then, I would say, were successful? Because if somebody told me to try to corral Mike Ray at a race and to keep him occupied, I couldn't do it. So were you able to keep him out of the...
Well, there were no issues there.
Okay.
It was funny because after the finish of the race, our guys were used to winning. Our guys were used to we won Daytona how many times or whatever. And after the race, the Shelby guys all went off to celebrate and drink the champagne and stuff. And the French race fans were cleaning out the pits. And I went and I found my dad to tell him we needed to do something. And he was talking to Mr. Ford. And I said, Dad, we've got to do something because the French are stealing all the tools and spare parts and pieces.
Oh my God.
And Mr. Ford said, "You called him Dad?" And I said, "Yeah, he's my father." He said, "I know he's your father, but my children call me Mr. Ford." I guess so.
Yeah.
Nice.
A little bit of protocol there. So Lee, that story and the fact that you were so associated with this victory, the work that a lot of people don't realize that when they, see the Holman Moody GT40, it's not a Ford, it's a Holman Moody. I mean, you're the builder.
Yeah.
And the heritage, the stuff we see in here, like the 427 Fairlane, the Galaxies, the Mustangs, and the fact that you're still going on Mustang, and we saw one, I think we talked to Bob and Mark and your new guy, Steph. Yeah, and they know they love that car. The difference, I think, with you, Lee, is the heritage that you're bringing to, and you're still true to what you wanted these cars to do, which was to handle like bejesus.
Well, it's been interesting because the thing that was noteworthy about knowing Edsel, he was in the shop just like we are today, doing a photo shoot for a Shelby video, in which he talked about how Shelby did everything but walk on water. But when it was over, he said, "Lee, if I stir up a Mustang project, if I get one started, will you cooperate? Will you work with us on it?" And so it was his idea that we, in 2014, did a 50th anniversary of the Tour de France, Holman and Moody, Alan Mann winning Mustang.
And back then, folks, the Tour de France is not the bicycle race that you think of. Back then, that was a pretty prestigious international auto race.
But when Mr. Edsel Ford II says, "If I stir up a Mustang project, would you cooperate?" We had no money for the project. We had no technical knowledge of the modern Mustangs or anything. And in 90 days, we produced the red 2014 TDF, which pulls, at that time, on Continental road tires, we pull 1.18 Gs, which is better than the Dark Horse does today.
Wow.
Ford's had 10 years to catch up, and they haven't done it yet.
Well, Mike, this is what we talked about. I mean, when enthusiast-driven companies like Holman and Moody have existed, they have that path that they have to follow. Because if they fall off that, then they're not even effective anymore. But for them, all these years later, to make that car, and Mike, I've seen them, a couple of them that show. How many did you wind up making?
We made 27 of them. and very few have been sold. There were a couple of people traded them in because they trade cars every year or whatever.
Yeah.
But most of the original owners still have them. And we can outrun all of the 700 horsepower Shelbys and Roushes on a road course as long as there's a corner. We've got 450 horsepower, but it's attached to the ground.
Right.
It's not like the Cobra that just spins the tires and makes smoke.
Well, and Mike, you're in the business long enough to know that when the people in our Mustang clubs, one guy comes to mind who's a Fox Buddy guy in Western Michigan, that when the Shelby started coming with the GT500 in 07, started coming out, these were big motored cars. We put superchargers on thanks to Mr. Coletti. But it got to the point where when Chrysler and Dodge came out with the Hellcats and, I can get a Mopar with more horsepower, and they all talk more horsepower. And you always reminded me, do you want all that horsepower for your tires to go up in smoke, or do you want to be gone?
Right.
And
Right.
the smoke is funny, but it doesn't win you any races.
Right.
No, and it's not horsepower that wins the races; it's torque. And so we concentrated on keeping the torque and keeping it attached to the ground. And I have a wonderful engineer, Bob D'Amato, who designed the suspension on this car. It has the 14 has fully adjustable front and rear 3-piece sway bars, and we used a lot of Ford's parts and a lot of Ford's pieces. We had custom wheels made, and then our own graphics package, and everyone that saw them had to have one. And we were limited because during the 2014 production run, they stopped production early to rebody or retool to make the independent rear suspension.
For the 550,
Yeah. And so we still had 5 or 6 more on order that never got built because the Mustang itself got canceled.
Yeah.
But we decided to come out and do an independent rear suspension version. And I bought a new Mustang, and Bob worked his magic, and we have just come out with a 2024 Mustang that has 50-50 right to left, 50-50 front to rear balancing, and with Ford lowering springs and Holman and Moody sway bars and sway bar packages, and on Bridgestone tires, production run, street tires, with the original chassis, not cambered, everything's the chassis setting. That car in our testing is pulling 1.24 Gs at Lime Rock, and it is remarkable because, like I said, the dark horse today, that competition is 1.16. We're at 1.24 consistently. It's to the point that the first car we did, we worked with Sam Posey, and we made that a Sam Posey limited edition. And Sam can no longer drive, and so our engineer Bob gave him a ride around Lime Rock, and with other cars on the track, with Sam Posey as a passenger, we lapped Lime Rock at 1 minute 3 seconds.
Wow. Wow.
So Mike, my whole issue with our hobby is that we spend a lot of time at car shows. We'll see you've seen some unique stuff, but when you see one of these cars, I don't think that our audience really understands the heritage behind when they see the Holman Moody name, what that all means.
No, and when they see it, they're stopping because they don't see too many of them, right? They said 27 of them actually on the road. So if they see it, they're going to stop. They're going to ask questions to the owner, or if Holman Moody might be in their presence, there too. But you're going to get a good story out of it, and you're going to learn that heritage and history.
Which is another thing we want to talk about today, and we'll show you some footage of this car as well. So after the TDF car came out, I remember these, and we had a lot of fun seeing these cars on the track. We saw them at shows. The owners were like beaming. And then it kind of, Lee, you have to admit, when the car came out, it kind of reinvigorated people. They were buying more Holman Moody t-shirts than I've seen in a while because your name got back out there. Because instead of just doing all these great builds and repairs and builds for people that want to fix the race cars the way they should have been, you now had a brand new product out there. And I remember you coming to Ford Racing and working, trying to get the parts and trying to get this car built and trying to get, the sourcing all the Ford parts you needed to make that happen. But then after the car came out, you gave me that cool TDF. I didn't know anything, Mike. I wrote 2 Mustang books. I didn't know And he gave me this cool metal sign. I thought, this is really cool. And then all of a sudden I thought, well, wait a minute. Somebody told me, oh, there's a TDF. It was built by Alan Mann and it went to auction. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be cool if we could see what did that car look like? And here in your shop today, we have a 64.5 that I think you said is as close to the original TDF cars as you can make it.
Yes, it's a replica of the original 3 that were our team cars. And it has the lowering springs, and it has the panhard rod in the rear, and it also has modified front fenders to give room for the 15-inch wheels. It has a quick steering box in it. Okay. One of our tricks with the rally cars, with the Falcons, because we had to have quick steering in order to performance drive the cars, the standard Mustang had a 24-to-1 steering ratio, but the power steering box was a 16-to-1. And so we used the power steering old steering box, but with no power steering. And it's you have to be kind of a man to drive it, but it's a 16-to-1 ratio, which is about what you have with a Cobra or regular sports car. But there were simple little modifications. One of the tricks we did, you couldn't run a radius rod, where the Shelbys on their GT350 have a radius rod below the rear. You couldn't do that under FIA rules. So on the Rally Falcons and the Rally Mustangs, we put a half leaf in there, which was a very thick 1/4-inch wrapped around the front spring mount that only went back as far as the rear suspension. And that prevents the rear end hop, but it doesn't affect the ride. And so in effect, we've done the same thing with the modern Mustangs. We've done it all with sway bars. The springs are standard. And so this car and our new car, the Blue Project, they go down the road smooth, comfortable. It's a nice, easy ride. But when you get to an exit ramp, you just turn, you don't slow down. And I've had the Challengers and those cars spin out they're on my butt because they know I've got a special car.
Let's see what you got.
You get off the exit ramp to do the cloverleaf, and they spin out because they can't keep up.
Well, Mike, that's the beauty of this hobby, and that's the beauty of this man. And I know what you should do if you don't know your Holman and Moody's history. There's a great book you guys have on the history of your company. You should Google some of the wonderful stuff that this company has meant to Ford Motor Company and meant to you as Mustang owners, because the history that you bring to Ford's glory, it wouldn't have happened without you. We just are so thankful for the fact that we get to know you and hang with you. But the other fact is we're going to have to come and just do a whole day of talking about and in succession.
Yeah.
As you went from you were in your early 20s in Le Mans, and as you went from those years through all the progressions of, and not just the big Galaxies, the 427s, that going to Goodwood, and those cars are still revered and raced. All the things you touched all over those years, it's all part of our legacy. And without your telling it, without you listening to it, without you being a member of the podcast team and just being part of this, you'd never know it. We really can't help. Thank you so much for your time today. Mike,
we can do a Lee Holman series.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
But just the fact that when we have Etzel on the podcast,
this is going to be great.
That's
what we're coming for you.
You will remember being at Le Mans in 1966 and having Lee, even though you're only 3 years older than he was at the time.
Yeah.
But
we want to hear Etzel's memories of it as well.
What we'll do, Lee, is we'll get Etzel's memory of that, and we'll have dueling memories.
Yes,
of what
that'll be really cool.
Back in 1966, at that glorious day when Ford beat Ferrari and Holman and Moody made it all happen. Lee, thanks again for your time.
My pleasure.
All right, brother. I hope you enjoyed this little snippet of what we're going to get you from Holman and Moody, and just by hanging, Mike, I can't thank you enough for thinking of it. Let's come down here and get that.
Had to see the shop. Never been here before. It's a must see.
We would spend more time talking to you about this, but we're now going to spend some time checking out all the secrets of this shop, and then we'll bring that to you at a later episode. So thanks for joining us today on the Mustang Owners Podcast.